If you've spent any time over the past year watching AEW, you know that Hangman Adam Page is over AF. Similarly, if you've spent any time over the past 10 or so years watching WWE, you'd be familiar with Roman Reigns, and you know that he has kind of a love-hate relationship with the audience. Now, why am I bringing up these two guys in the same sentence? They're nothing alike, their gimmicks are as different as can be, they don't even wrestle the same style. It's because they each hold, or have held, I haven't actually watched WWE in about 4 years, a similar position within the company, the Golden Boy. So why are fans super invested in the Hangman, while for years they booed Roman Reigns so loud that WWE had to eventually drown out the audience sound? Well, I'm going to attempt to answer that by doing a deep dive into both characters and how both companies tried to tell their stories. So timekeeper, please ring that bell. This is Hangman Page versus Roman Reigns. It's November 2012, Survivor Series, and CM Punk is defending his WWE Championship against John Cena and Ryback. Suddenly, 3 men jump the barricade and attack Ryback, powerbombing him through the announcer's table and giving Punk the win. The 3 are revealed to be Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns, up-and-coming wrestlers from WWE's developmental brand, NXT. The next week on Raw, they formally introduce themselves as The Shield, a trio seeking to fight injustice, to right the wrongs of bad booking in WWE. This gimmick was very meta for wrestling in 2012 and instantly got over with the fans. Over the next 2 years, The Shield reshaped the world of professional wrestling, with themselves at the pinnacle. They took on top guys in the company, usually in 6-man tag matches, and were able to pick up the Tag Team and United States Championships. Of the 3 men, it was clear that Roman Reigns was being built up to seem the most powerful. He was the muscle behind the team's group finisher. He was almost never seen on the defensive, and he rarely spoke, except to utter the team's catchphrase. And when the trio did lose, it was never Roman that took the fall. January 26th, 2014, in my opinion, is one of the most important dates in wrestling history. It was the day of the Royal Rumble, a yearly pay-per-view whose titular match is a 30-man battle royal, with the winner anointed as the #1 contender to the company's top title in the main event of WrestleMania. The final 4 men in this year's match would be CM Punk, Sheamus, Roman Reigns, and Batista, who was making his surprise comeback, conveniently coinciding with his feature film debut in Guardians of the Galaxy. But more important than who was in the match was who was not in the match. Anyone paying attention could tell that the fan favorite to challenge for Randy Orton's WWE World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania was Daniel Bryan, who had had an excellent series of matches with Orton in 2013 and was organically over with the crowd, whose story for the past year had been that he was continually being screwed out of title shots. When all 30 entrants had joined the match and Bryan was nowhere to be seen, fans were pissed. They even booed the very popular Rey Mysterio, who was the last to enter just because he wasn't D-Bry. Looking at the last 4 competitors left in the ring, it was obvious that the winner would be Batista. Yet we hoped against hope that CM Punk would come out on top and finally get the one thing that had eluded him his whole career, the main event spot at WrestleMania. No, he was pulled out of the ring by Kane. So our next best bet became Roman. It would be uncharacteristic of WWE to pull the trigger on one of the younger guys who was still a little rough around the edges, but even that would have been more interesting than an Orton-Batista main event. Reigns was able to eliminate Sheamus, taking the record for most eliminations in a single Rumble match, but moments later our dreams were dashed when Batista predictably won. This would also be CM Punk's final match for WWE. Growing frustrated with the creative direction the company was taking, on top of being overworked and continually wrestling while injured, he abruptly left the following night and would disappear from the public eye for the majority of 2014. It took nearly 2 months for WWE to accept that they had booked a clunker of an uninteresting main event, and finally conceded to fan demands and inserted Daniel Bryan into the championship match. In June 2014, The Shield would finally disband when Seth Rollins betrayed his teammates and allied with Triple H and The Authority, becoming a servant of the very power the Shield had fought so hard against. From there, each guy would go their separate way, and while Rollins and Ambrose would get new ring gear and new music, essentially evolving their characters and becoming more unique, Reigns would keep the Shield riot gear, the Shield theme music. He even continued to enter the arena through the audience, as the Shield had always done since their debut. It was as if WWE was afraid to evolve the Roman Reigns character, and kept all the things that had proven to work for the Shield on Roman. Frankly, all this did was keep his character boring. While Seth and Dean were breaking out and propelling themselves to new heights, Roman was exactly the same as he was when he first debuted. But for some reason, he was now the one being pushed towards the WWE title and the main event spot. Where fans would have welcomed the fresh-faced hero a year earlier, he was now reviled. Given how dominant and protected he was as a member of the Shield, it was clear that WWE was attempting to build him into the next John Cena, and the fan base was beginning to reject him. In September, Reigns would suffer an incarcerated hernia, which would need surgery, and keep him out of action until mid-December. Had Reigns simply taken the time off to heal his injury, he would have likely been cheered upon returning. But I guess WWE Creative has never heard the phrase, "absence makes the heart grow fonder," because each week on Monday Night Raw, Michael Cole would check in with Roman via satellite for 3 whole months. To me, this is where WWE really shot Roman's storyline in the foot, because their desperate attempt to keep him in the public's consciousness was so transparent, whereas other more deserving guys were earning that top spot organically by delivering great promos, having exciting matches, and connecting with the fans, and yet they were being overlooked. To make matters worse, in November, CM Punk would make his first public appearance since leaving WWE, giving 2 shoot interviews on Colt Cabana's podcast, The Art of Wrestling. Among the many statements Punk made about WWE's toxic work environment, unsafe practices, and incompetence of the creative staff, he revealed something that we all kind of already knew, that when facing the Shield, all creative cared about was that he make Roman look strong. This brings us to the Royal Rumble 2015, where WWE would make sure not to repeat their mistake from the previous... No, Daniel Bryan got eliminated about halfway through the match. The final 4 this time would be Reigns, Big Show, Kane, and Rusev. With sheer willpower, and a little assistance from his cousin, The Rock, Roman toppled the 3 giants to win the Rumble, to a chorus of boos from the Philadelphia crowd. Not even an endorsement from the most famous wrestler on the planet could get Roman over. This time the problem wasn't just that Roman isn't Bryan. It's also that fans didn't want another, somewhat edgy, mostly babyface, apparently indestructible champion. Misdiagnosing the situation once again, WWE booked Roman to defeat Bryan at the Fastlane pay-per-view ahead of WrestleMania to cement his main event status. Of course, this didn't do much to sway the fans' opinions, but luckily, there was a backup plan. The main event of WrestleMania 31 would see Reigns take on WWE Champion Brock Lesnar, but midway through the match, Seth Rollins would use his Money in the Bank contract to insert himself into the match, turning it into a triple threat, eventually walking away with the title. Rather than course correct and put the focus on superstars that the fans were more invested in, over the course of the next year, WWE would try to recreate the organic popularity of Daniel Bryan, but with Roman Reigns. They literally repeated the exact same moments from 2 years earlier, such as winning the WWE Championship at a pay-per-view, only to have the Money in the Bank winner cash in with help from Triple H, and backstage shenanigans interfering with their Royal Rumble spot. In December 2015, WWE would actually accomplish the impossible. Reigns was cheered in Philadelphia when he reclaimed the WWE Championship from Sheamus. Not necessarily because the crowd wanted Reigns to be the top guy, but because they wanted Sheamus in that spot even less. Reigns would lose the championship to Triple H in the 2016 Royal Rumble match, just so that he could win it back again at WrestleMania 32, once again to a chorus of boos. This is roughly when I began to stop paying attention to WWE. They continued to push Reigns as a main event talent, and fans continued to boo. Eventually, they resorted to pumping pre-recorded cheers into the crowd when Reigns would appear, but it was pretty easy to tell that the live crowd was actually jeering the big dog. In January 2017, I made the decision to quietly boycott the company, something I'll likely address in another video. The only exception I made was to watch WrestleMania 33 with my close friends who I had regularly watched pay-per-views with one last time before I left Long Island to move to New York City. At that event, Roman Reigns would become the second person in history to defeat The Undertaker at a WrestleMania. And the following year, he would once again battle the first person to break The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak, Brock Lesnar. Mania 34 would mark Roman's fourth consecutive WrestleMania main event. By this point, it was clear that WWE had no concern for the fans' opinions. Like it or not, Roman Reigns is their top guy, second only to the part-timer Brock Lesnar. After WWE stopped touring due to the coronavirus pandemic, they took the Roman Reigns character in an unexpected direction, turning him fully heel by having him attack family members and ally with Lesnar's former manager, Paul Heyman. Although I can't confirm this firsthand, I'm told that this change has been a breath of fresh air for the character, and the first time since he debuted with the Shield that Roman Reigns has had any intrigue, making him one of the few performers who has actually been aided by the absence of a live audience. The end of 2018 would bring with it the end of several performers' contracts with Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling. On January 1st, 2019, on their YouTube show Being the Elite, Cody Rhodes, Matt and Nick Jackson, and Hangman Adam Page formally announced the creation of All Elite Wrestling. 1 week later, they would hold a press conference to announce their plans for the new company, including executive staff, first events, and an early look at who might be on the roster. Adam Page took the stage to announce that he had signed with the company, and he boldly proclaimed his goal of becoming the first champion in the newly formed AEW. May 25th, AEW would hold its first official pay-per-view, Double or Nothing. The event would feature 2 matches with world title implications. Similar in concept to the Royal Rumble, a 21-man casino battle royal would be held, the winner of which would face the winner of that night's main event to crown the first AEW World Champion. Page was placed in the prime position to win the Battle Royal, which he did with ease, and would go on to face Chris Jericho at the upcoming pay-per-view All Out the following August. But at All Out, something unexpected happened. Jericho triumphed over Page to claim the AEW title. The company's golden boy, a young, talented babyface with all the momentum in the world, the support of the company behind his back, who was a member of the group that the company itself was named after, fell victim to a gaudy, boastful megalomaniac in Chris Jericho. In October, AEW's weekly show Dynamite would premiere on TNT, and Page would suffer another major loss to Pac. Despondent after 2 high-profile back-to-back losses, Hangman began to isolate himself from the other members of the Elite. He appeared sullen before and after matches, and would often be seen drinking or intoxicated. In January 2020, he somewhat reluctantly formed a tag team with fellow Elite member Kenny Omega, and was able to win the AEW Tag Team Championships from SoCal Uncensored. But this only made him retreat further into seclusion and alcoholism. He became so synonymous with alcohol that his background entrance video is literally just beer flowing. He was clearly tired of being associated with teams like the Elite. He wanted to prove himself as a singles competitor, and constantly felt lost in the shuffle of these big group dynamics. After many attempts to distance himself from the Elite, he was formally kicked out of the group after preventing the Young Bucks from winning a tag title shot. He then put little effort into defending the tag titles, and after losing them to FTR, dissolved his partnership with Kenny Omega. It was around this time that the Dark Order, a group of cult-like zealots, began trying to recruit Page into their faction. The Dark Order was growing in popularity thanks to their comedic appearances on Being the Elite. They continually courted Hangman as if they were asking him to a high school prom, but Page would usually shoot them down, saying that he wasn't interested in being in another group, only letting his guard down and partying with the Dark Order on select occasions. This culminated in a grandiose, over-the-top proposal from the Dark Order, which the Hangman softly declined. Seeing an opportunity, Matt Hardy began courting Page to be his tag partner. and after a couple of wins attempted to get Hangman drunk to trick him into signing over 30% of his earnings. Hangman pulled a fast one on Hardy though, switching the contracts to give himself a big money match against Hardy, wherein the winner would take all the opponent's earnings for the first quarter of 2021. And when Hardy attempted to cheat to win this match, who do you think arrived to back up Adam Page? Of course, it was the Dark Order. That brings us present, and although Hangman is still resistant to joining the Dark Order, he has fully embraced them as friends and allies. We, the audience, know that Hangman Adam Page will likely redeem the losses that sent him on this downward spiral, and we'll watch him climb his way back to the top of the card and eventually win the AEW championship that eluded him all the way back in August of 2019. But we are fully invested in taking that ride, because when the path was seemingly being made easy for him, we were all thrown a curveball. And then we were given time to explore a character that was promised the world and had it ripped away from them. And we're still exploring that journey and seeing all the different directions it can take us. Whereas with Roman Reigns, we were simply presented with the dominating force and told to embrace it. And like John Cena before him, the fans rejected what was being spoon-fed to them. One day, in a somewhat distant future, Hangman Adam Page will be what WWE wanted Roman Reigns to be. A babyface champion, dominant at the top of the card and embraced by the fans. But I hope that doesn't happen until way after Kenny Omega wins all the world titles like a modern-day Great Muta and then snaps the Infinity Gauntlet and destroys half the universe. It's going to be so dope! If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and look for other wrestling videos on this channel. Most recently, I did my top most wanted matches of 2021. If you have any requests for angles you'd like to hear me fantasy book in the future, let me know in the comments. I'm thinking about doing an AEW versus Impact Wrestling pay-per-view storyline, but I'm going to hold on to that one just a little bit longer. Once again, for the New Proletariat Theater, I'm Alex saying, join the Dark Order. Johnny Hungy, believe that.